try to keep it short. We have many questions and limited time.
So, first of all, thank you for being here. It's such a pleasure to have you here in this space. I'm curious if you could speak a little bit about your sense of empathy as a filmmaker. Watching this, it seems like the sort of picture that you perhaps could not have made at the beginning of your career, and how the stories that you're interested in, from both feature films and documentaries, are determined by when you feel ready to tell that story.
It's not when I feel ready to tell the story. Of course there's empathy, and I have to like the leading characters in my films, including Aguirre, including men who are on death row, who will be executed 8 days later. So that's obvious. But otherwise, when am I ready? I'm never ready for what's coming at me. I wake up in the middle of the night, I say it as a metaphor, and I find 5 burglars in my kitchen, all uninvited. And one of them comes swinging with an axe at me. I better deal with that one first. Everything that is coming at me comes with great vehemence. And I try to sort it out, what's the most urgent, and that's the only criteria.
Whoever's got the biggest axe.
Yes, and I've never planned a career. I've never had a career.
Almost sounds like a battle.
No, not like a battle. It's imagination, and it's imaginary sort of battlegrounds, and they have great beauty sometimes. It's not just aggressiveness alone. It's, for example, when I did Grizzly Man, I stumbled, or this whole thing stumbled into me, and I knew this is so big, I have to do it. And I took it away from somebody who was prepared to do it.
Next question?
Brilliant film. I really enjoyed it. Thank you very much for making it. 2 quick questions. How many hours of interview did you have with Gorbachev, and did you attempt to discuss his impressions or feelings about the current state of Russia and Putin?
Second part, no, he didn't want to discuss today's politics the same way he said to me, if we had spoken 10 years ago, we wouldn't have discussed Obama and Mitterrand. So fine. And all in all, we had 3 meetings. Each one lasted a little more than an hour. So 3 hours.
Will there be a DVD with extras coming out?
There are no extras. That's all we have.
Thank you.
I hope there will be a DVD after the theatrical release.
And is it true, I believe, that this is going to be his last on-camera interview with Gorbachev?
Well, I got hints from his entourage that Mikhail Sergeyevich considered me the last camera or person he would speak in public. So, and he's not in good health, and he's doing very good battle against his illness or illnesses.
Okay, next.
Hi. So I must assume there is a certain significance to any project you choose to do, whether you write it, direct it, or you're just a part of somebody else's project. So you've done voices of Rick and Morty, you've done, but what I want to know is what about Star Wars made you want to become part of that universe? As we know, November 12th, you'll see you in The Mandalorian.
Yes, The Mandalorian.
Yeah, Mandalorian, I was invited to play a part in it, and I asked for the dialogues, the screenplays, and they sent it to me, and it made a lot of sense. But I'm not really part of the world because I'm not very familiar with this world, with this particular world. But I had the feeling it was based in pure fantasies, which is beautiful, that's cinema. And I also was fascinated by a new technology, which is as big and as innovative as, let's say, green screens. Green screens were invented to create realities outside, or invented realities next to the actors. Now green screen is not necessary anymore, and that's a huge step. All of a sudden, cinema filmmaking is back where it should be. Actors see the environment, the camera sees it, and all parallaxes and all distortion of perspectives are calculated somehow by big computers, but in a way that you can even film handheld, weaving in through the actors, and you can do it without motion-controlled camera and a controlled background on a green screen. So a huge, huge technological step which points back to real filmmaking. That's what I found very fascinating.
Thank you.
Have you acted in front of a green screen?
Yes, but it's you have to be very much into imagination, what is next to you, what's happening there. And I like more the direct sort of acting, like in Jack Reacher, where I'm playing the bad guy. Yes, because I have one of my henchmen who made a mistake, and I'm really, really dangerous and nasty with him. And I was paid well to be terrifying. No, I do it well. I deserve the fee that
Next question, please.
Hi. I'm sorry if this is an embarrassing question or abrupt, but I've been a fan of your work ever since I was very young, and I was wondering if there was a way, I'm nervous, I'm not getting emotional, but if there's a way that I could be a part of one of your future projects.
Thank you for asking. You don't have to feel embarrassed. It's very unlikely because I'm reducing my crews more and more. For example, Encounters at the End of the World was done by two men, cinematographer Peter Zeitling and me. I did the sound and directed the film. I did a feature film after Gorbachev. I finished yet two more films. Another long documentary, Nomad, on the writer of Bruce Chatwin. And I finished a feature film in Japan, a narrative feature film. It's a real narrative feature film, but the film was made with my own pocket money. There was no completion bond or E&O insurances and no demands from any producers who wanted me to take any stars on board. And the film ultimately is like a one-man film, like a barefoot pilgrim. And I did my own camera, and I wrote the dialogues, and I directed it. And there's some names, costume department, it was me. And there's a legal department, Golden, Seabird, and Seabird, it's me. and on and on, but I have somehow moved back to the spirit of how I would film in my younger age. Akira, The Wrath of God, or even Dwarfs started small. So instead of bringing on new collaborators, I'm forced at the moment to reduce, which has its great advantages. But if you want to find me, you find me on the internet. There's a mailing address and there's an email address. You can find me and you can pose your question with more detail.
Thank you so much.
All right, we've only got time for one more question, I'm afraid, so.
Let's have another two. Okay, we'll do it quickly.
All right, one or two more then. Okay, please go ahead.
In interviews, you've made a hard stand against introspection.
Can you speak up a little bit?
Sorry. In interviews, you've made a hard stand against introspection to the extent that even the color of your own eyes remain a mystery to you. Does this lack of familiarity with your own soul have any relationship to your ability to so readily penetrate the soul of a fellow man?
Well, I think I know the heart of men, but I do not want to have too much introspection into myself. I think psychoanalysis, 20th century, it started a little earlier, has been one of the major mistakes of the last century. To such a degree, the bankruptcy of the great social utopias like communism, paradise on earth, Nazism, fascism, the master race that will dominate the entire planet. Thanks God, we saw the bankruptcy of it. And part of this bankruptcy of many other events has been psychoanalysis and too much self-reflection. It has not done good to no one. And I'm the one who is trying to avoid it. Basically, I know where I'm coming from, where I'm standing, and where I'm heading, but I do not want to know much about my soul itself. There must be something there, but I don't care. When it comes to myself, I only want to touch myself with a pair of pliers.
Okay, and then
One more.
one more.
So often in your films, you are plumbing just the depths, the darkest of the dark of a subject, and yet there are always people in the midst of that your audience falls in love with, and that we have a sense of you having a real connection to them, and almost being surprised by what you find. It almost seems like that's the driving force of your work, is to go out and find the humanity in the middle of a lot of hopelessness. Would you say that's a fair sort of assessment?
That's very kind that you see it that way, because I've been depicted in the media and in the internet as a gloomy, teutonic sort of dark gloom that is looking into the abysses of darkness. No, there's much more to it. Of course, I try to look deep into us, but also into the wonderful sides, the miracle of what we are, and the enthusiasm with which I see people and I depict them on camera and on screen. So there's a great joy, there's always this awe. All my films are filled with awe, and that's quintessentially cinema. That's what I do. That's what is my profession. I think